Good evening and welcome back to World Talks, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Jastrzębska. We turn now to Ukraine and what comes next. It may be a case of progress, followed by fresh questions. Talks between Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Donald Trump in Florida over the weekend have renewed discussions about the future of the peace process. A key issue is what any eventual settlement could mean for Ukraine in the long term, its recovery, reconstruction, and future prospects. To discuss this, I'm joined by Reuben F. Director of the Asia Research Center at the Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, talks in Florida have produced an advanced draft of a potential peace agreement. I'd like us to take a look now at some of the reactions from both officials and ordinary inhabitants of Kyiv.
What does Ukraine want? Peace? Yes. At any cost? No. We want the end of the war, not the end of Ukraine. Are we tired? Extremely. Does that mean we are ready to surrender? Those who think so are deeply mistaken. For the Ukrainian armed forces, the priority is defense against our insatiable occupier. This is why I want to assure you we are here and we will stay here.
My dad defends me, so I believe in peace, that everyone will return home.
I will raise a glass to victory. I believe that we will stand firm in this war, but the price will be very, very high.
So clearly not everyone is happy. What are some of the key unresolved issues, and do you believe any of them could derail the entire deal?
Well, I think the entire deal can be derailed because the Russians are trying to derail it. You know, we all know that while these talks were being concluded, the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov comes out with this rather outlandish claim that Ukraine fired 91 drones onto the residence of Vladimir Putin, and that this looks like a pretext for them. You know, it's one of the lecturers at King's College, Ruth Dyerman, said that, you know, this is the absolutely definitely true but strangely unverifiable thing that just happens to have occurred at the most convenient time imaginable for the Kremlin. I have to seriously ask. We all know that dictatorships which terrorize their people and their neighbors, like Russia does, that one of their favorite weapons that they use of modern day, everyday technology is a CCTV camera. Where's the CCTV footage of all these drones? And oh, by the way, according to the Russian Air Defense Forces, there were only 89 drones fired that night on all of Russia, all regions, all cities, everywhere. So this is an absolutely bogus claim and a complete lie, and they are trying to stop this process before it even gets concluded.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, this, of course, has been proven to be false. But I was wondering, why would Russia push a claim that unraveled so quickly? On top of that, Vladimir Putin himself said this to Donald Trump, right? I mean, risking their, let's say, relationship.
Well, you just answered your own question. The reason that they would make this kind of bogus claim would be to see just how much Putin is able to manipulate Trump. And he was able to manipulate him perfectly. He tells him this over the phone, and Trump accepts it at face value. So this is, you know, this is almost a test of what the Russians can get away with in terms of trying to manipulate behind the scenes what's going on and to influence the position of the American president. This ought to be concerning to everybody in the Republican Party, who, particularly people like myself, who were around during Ronald Reagan, who are concerned about the unrelenting over decades Russian imperialism that continues to this day.
But this will surely diminish Trump's trust in Putin. I mean, I do hope so.
I would like to think so. I really would. But I keep waiting for that moment where the light bulb goes off and somebody says, hey, I think we can't really trust this guy, anything. If he says the sky is blue, you better walk outside and check first.
So let's go back to Florida talks for a moment, if we could, please. What are some of the issues that still need to be resolved? Could we perhaps zoom in on them?
Well, I think two of the largest ones. One is that It's the issue of having foreign European troops on the ground, or having a demilitarized zone, a free economic zone. That's not been decided yet. But the other one is the fact that the Russians want all of Donetsk, they want all of the Donbass, and the Ukrainians are saying no, because that would be giving the Russians the fortress belt of cities, and that's basically paving the road for them to walk into Kiev. And I can't. The Ukrainians are not going to give up that territory, no matter how many people say that they should. They're just not going to do that. It's suicide, and there's no reason why they should. Russians haven't been able to take all of Donetsk after 10 years of trying.
Right. I mean, the Donbass is an industrial heartland of Ukraine, of course. And as you've mentioned, the Russians are still insisting on seizing it. So what is the solution? A territorial compromise? Do you think it could create more problems than it actually solves?
People are hoping naively that we're going to get some kind of a resolution here, that this is like some kind of a movie and everything gets resolved at the end of 2 hours. It's not. This fighting is going to go on until next year. It's going to go on until Russia has so many problems that they have to stop. That's the only thing. And the only thing that's going to make them stop is to do exactly what the Ukrainians are doing now. Attack the oil industry, attack the shadow fleet, convince the rest of the world to maintain sanctions and slap on some more. But the Russians, particularly Putin, he has no interest in this thing coming to an end. And if it does come to an end, what's he going to tell his people? In December of 2022, Russia occupied 18% of Ukraine. In this past December, which just ended yesterday, they now occupy 19% of Ukraine. And remember that in July, they passed that magic mark of 1 million dead, wounded, captured, or missing soldiers. So for 1 million men, you are going to get 1% more of Ukraine territory. You think the Russian public's going to buy that? So he can't afford for this war to end right now.
I was actually going to ask you about this because there are some reports of Vladimir Putin losing popularity. How credible are these?
I don't have. I've lost count of the number of Instagram videos that I've downloaded, which are people in Russia speaking about their absolute disregard for this man and their disrespect for him and what he's done to the country. Now, of course, if people go out into the streets, there's an entire army of people around Putin who are more than willing, actually absolutely more than happy to shoot into crowds of unarmed people. But this great public support is evaporating, and it's just not there.
So let's turn.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please do.
Well, I've said this before on this channel, I think, but I go back to the period just before the collapse of the Soviet Union, and there were demonstrations on the street every day, which under Soviet law are illegal. You're not allowed to have a demonstration unless you've applied for it first and you have a license. So the head of the Internal Affairs Ministry troops was asked one day, what about all these illegal demonstrations breaking out? What are you going to do? And he said, well, if it's a demonstration of 1,000 people or less, we will try and break it up. If it's 10,000 people or more, we'll just sit and watch it. If it's 100,000 people or more, we're going to join it. And I think that's where that's where Russia is headed. They're headed for that moment.
So how much longer can Putin and his regime last? I mean, what time horizon are we looking at?
Well, it's not so much a question of time, but it's a question of things like how long can you keep expending these kinds of resources on the war, and the stagnation to go on, and the interest rates to be maintained at levels in which there are bankruptcies every day and people are talking about a banking crisis. Just when this war starts, Russia has 2,000 defense enterprises producing munitions and other items for this war. They now have 6,000, 3 times the number, plus all the stuff they've been getting from North Korea and China and anybody else. So they're pouring immense resources into this, and I will repeat, they're not gaining any territory, 1% more than they had 3 years ago. 1%. So Uh, this will go on until the system breaks. Now, how long might that be? It could be another 6 months. I think we're going to see some very heavy fighting, uh, and a lot is going to depend on the NATO summit coming up in July, because I'm afraid we're going to get to that point, and there will be no peace agreement, and Trump will just walk away and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't get instant results." So he'll walk away from the entire peace process, leave it to the Europeans. He might even walk away from NATO. We don't know.
Okay, now let's turn to Ukraine for a moment. Coalition of the Willing, 2 meetings coming up, one among national security advisors on January 3rd in Kyiv. Then we have another one among leaders in France on the 6th. So what kind of outcomes are we hoping for?
Well, I'm pretty sure the Ukrainians are hoping for a program of how to support the many procurements that they are proposing to make from European defense production enterprises. So you will probably remember there is a 150 aircraft purchase that has been asked for from Sweden by Ukraine of the brand new Jazz-39E Gripen fighter aircraft, and a 100 aircraft purchase from France for the Rafale. That's 215 fighter aircraft. That is the largest procurement of fighter aircraft from any one country in my lifetime, outside of the United States, of course. But in terms of an export sale, that's the largest export sale in my lifetime. It's more than double the largest one I've ever seen. So that's what we're talking about. And we're talking about, they're hoping that, I think for Ukraine, should be hoping for a very well thought out long range program of how to finance, how to support, how to produce these items on an expedited schedule, and to bring the capacity in the Ukraine armed forces to take the fight to the Russians. There's been a lot of defending going on up until now. It now needs to become more of an offensive game from Kyiv.
So we have this dialogue between Ukraine and the US, and of course we have dialogue between US and Europe, right? And I was wondering, what is the contents of this, and sort of how do Tomahawks how do they, play into this?
Okay, first of all, about the Tomahawks, there are some very real problems. The Tomahawk is designed to be launched from naval vessels. Yes, there is a ground launch. There is a ground launcher for the Tomahawks, relatively new system. There's 1.5 of those at present, if I'm not mistaken. So, number one, it's hard to find some system to launch them from. More of those have to be built. But we don't have enough Tomahawks. We've used so many of them against the Houthis, and in helping Israel defend itself against Iran and in other operations. We don't have enough to fill every single vertical launch canister in all of the U.S. Navy ships we have. And it's another one of those items that people should have gone into surge production in 2022 when this war started. And 3.5 years later, we're still talking about things like we can't get enough rocket motors. We can't get enough of this. So Trump could sit there and say, no, good thing I didn't agree to give the Ukraine the Tomahawks. I'm not sure there were that many there, if any, to give.
I believe we've lost our connection. That was Reuben Johnson, Director of the Asia Research Center at the Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Thank you very much, Reuben. And thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.